Well, welcome everyone on this Wednesday afternoon. I appreciate you joining me here. We'll get right to it. Hurricane Gabrielle is a threat to the Azores with a hurricane warning in effect as that system will be racing off to the east over the North Atlantic. But we are watching closely two areas likely to become our next two systems, perhaps both hurricanes in close proximity to each other here over the coming days in the Southwest Atlantic. And these could have some impact on the weather across the Bahamas, across the Greater Antilles, Bermuda, and also the eastern United States, with even a slim chance of a direct hit somewhere on the East Coast here next week. Now, the forecast, unfortunately, is highly uncertain. I'm not going to promise you I know exactly what's going to happen, but what I want to do is at least discuss what the possibilities are and what could cause what to happen here. So we're going to talk about that in this video. We'll spend a little bit of time here first talking about what else is going on across the world as things are picking up across the tropics in all basins as we speak. Here's a look right now at our global view here, and we see three storms across the Western Pacific, one hurricane here in the Eastern Pacific, one hurricane in the Eastern Atlantic, and two areas being monitored for likely development over the coming days. This is Zoom Earth giving you a better view here of Hurricane Gabrielle, which is a strong Category 2 storm. We have a pair of Invest, which both have a high chance of becoming our next system. Invest 93L looks like it's going to get the name Humberto here in the next probably 12 hours or so. That will follow with Invest 94, likely to become Imelda sometime between Thursday and probably Saturday morning as it moves north of Hispaniola. Hurricane Narda is a Category 2 hurricane that will encounter a little bit of wind shear and then may re-strengthen some close to major hurricane strength, but no threat to land at this time. Unfortunately, we have had a landfalling typhoon. This is Ragasa, which is likely weakening significantly below what this shows, but producing very heavy rain over southwestern portions of mainland China and northern Vietnam and eventually farther inland. We also have a real threat coming here to the Philippines with a possible strong tropical storm cutting right across the center of the country and then potentially strengthening more over the South China Sea as it heads generally in the direction of Hainan, Vietnam here later on this weekend. And we also have a recurving system here, which is unlikely to impact land. Earlier in the week, it looked like maybe it was going to try to circle back and threaten Japan. That unlikely to happen at this point. All right, the rest of the video, we're going to talk about what's going on in the Atlantic. This is highly complicated. I have not seen a weather forecast so challenging. And the reason why is that these two areas here are going to be competing for some similar space. We see a disturbance one right now has a 90% chance of becoming a storm. Probably later today or tonight, we are likely to see advisories issued. I do think it's going to go straight to tropical storm strength. It is not going to be a direct impact on the islands of the Eastern Caribbean at this time, but there may be some gusty winds as it passes by here over the next couple of days. In Bermuda, this is something to watch as it may potentially be close enough to be an impact when we get into the beginning portion of next week. The area to the west, this is the giant enigma, and this is going to change things for potentially your plans next week if you're on the East Coast. Likely to become a tropical storm, but there are some extreme differences in the possibilities of how this plays out. Anywhere from the system possibly regenerating after going over the islands of Hispaniola and taking its sweet time and eventually getting sucked up by this system to finding a way to escape over water and develop over the very warm waters near the central and eastern Bahamas, and then strengthening quickly into a storm. There are chances that it may get bumped west closer to Florida and maybe even sneaking into the Eastern Gulf. There are chances that it turns up the coast and threatens the Carolinas. There are also chances that it stalls nearer to the east of the Bahamas and eventually gets yanked back out to sea by this system in what would be called the Fujiwhara effect. And we're going to talk about the end of the video here. So three distinct possibilities right now. This would be a lot more simple if we just had one system to talk about, but unfortunately we have two, and both of them are fighting over this space for the time being. Here are the key messages at this time from the folks with the Hurricane Center in Miami. It is a complicated scenario, and I'm not going to promise to tell you I know more than these folks do. I know they're doing a good job this season. It's been a challenging one for sure. But because these two systems are close to each other, they will interact with each other more than likely. And what you see on the models today is going to very likely change over the next few days. Here's the challenge that you face, especially if you're in Florida and in the southeastern U.S. or in the Bahamas. Because of the warm water that has not really been touched this season, because of the proximity to land, there is going to be less than typical time to prepare for a potential hurricane. And that is the worst case scenario, is that we do, in fact, have a hurricane. Even if we don't have a hurricane, a tropical storm can cause flooding. It can cause some storm surge. It can cause damaging wind. And that could be a problem for those of us here in the Bahamas as well. So here's what we're looking at. Heavy rainfall impacting Puerto Rico, eventually eastern portions of Hispaniola, Punta Cana, to close to Santo Domingo, as well as eventually the Turks and Caicos Islands and the southeastern Bahamas. The Virgin Islands also dealing with some heavy rain. Right now, hurricane aircraft are flying through the upper atmosphere surrounding both of these systems, launching balloons, just trying to figure out what the steering currents may look like for the time being. And then that data is going to get fed back into our forecast models. And I expect we'll see changes just from that data alone, but also from the fact that these systems are still in the developmental phase, and they do take a while before models do get more accurate with them. So there is some speculation in this forecast. I will not lie to you, but because we are potentially 4 to 5 days away from 1 or 2 impacts, we need to talk about it at the very least. So here's a view of the a wide view of the Atlantic, and you can see this is Hurricane Gabrielle. It has moved well past Bermuda, actually getting closer to the Azores Islands here. It is being impacted by some wind shear out of the west. It will weaken gradually as it moves this direction, probably down to Category 1. There's a break with an area of high pressure filling in behind this system, and that high is shaped sort of like this. And that will be steering both of our invest areas here, 94 to the west and 93 to the east. Yes, the numbers have been switched because this one has a higher chance of forming and was on the radar first, basically. This one has pulsed up and down, but is beginning to show a little bit of signs of life as it nears Puerto Rico this afternoon. We do have a weak upper level low over here to the west that is going to come around the system and eventually merge with the front that is moving eastward here. I am looking forward to this front here in Raleigh, where I live. It's 93 degrees this afternoon. I am ready for some fall. I don't know about you folks. It is cooling down, and we're getting some heavier storms over portions of the mid and deep south this afternoon. And the Gulf and the Caribbean remain fairly quiet aside from this disturbance here in the Eastern Caribbean. I'm showing that to you here. We see a little bit of a twist here east of the Bahamas. Then we see our tropical wave with mid-level center somewhere under our thunderstorms. A low-level center may try to emerge out of this. Tough to say how that's going to play out. The Western Caribbean is going to remain quiet. Central America, a little bit quieter today due to the fact that we do have high pressure building in from the north. Here's a look at the northwestern Atlantic. Here's our front moving in from the west, and you can see scattered showers and storms moving out of the Great Lakes into the northeast and mid-Atlantic area, not yet making it into the Carolinas away from the mountains at this time. A quieter day across Florida overall, although we do have a few pop-ups in the southeastern portion of the state, but quieter over central Florida. And we do see a flare-up of storms associated with our upper-level trough here across the northwestern Bahamas and even portions of northern Cuba as well. Here's a look at the eastern portion of the Caribbean and the central Atlantic. We have 94 and 93 here. We're going to talk about both of them. Behind it, fortunately, things are going to be quiet. You see the stable air filling in behind this system. That will shut things down after this for probably a week, I would think. We may have additional waves to come off of Africa, but we're not going to talk about those for the time being because I just don't see any prospects. We're going to talk about Gabrielle. Looking at the visible satellite, you can see the large center of the system. The eye has filled in at this point as it has weakened, but the system has gotten bigger. It's getting a kick from the jet stream to the west at this time. You see that on the water vapor very clearly. We have still a very powerful system, even though the eye has no longer appeared. But we are seeing the size of the system growing here, and that means we're going to have more issues for the Azores coming up. Right now, winds are about 110 miles per hour. They may come down to about 100 by this evening, and then down to Category 1 strength probably by tomorrow morning or around midday tomorrow, making their closest approach to the Azores, it looks like tomorrow afternoon, sometime after 2 or 3 o'clock local time. Right now, the track goes over the western half of the Azores Islands, but it is possible it could shift a little bit in either direction. The waters are cooler, but they are still warm enough to support a nearly post-tropical system, which will have strong winds with it. After that, the system should weaken substantially, and it will curve down and maybe impact portions of Portugal, but it will be much weaker at that point this weekend. You can see here the possibility of hurricane force winds is fairly high. It's 80% just to the west over the western tip of the Azores, and 60 to 70% over the western half of the islands, a little bit less over the eastern portion here, only about 30 to 40%. That chance goes away, though, by the time we get to the end of the weekend, and we are not expecting hurricane conditions over portions of Western Europe at this time. Excuse me. All right, this is 94L. I think this one will eventually get the name Imelda. It's not in a rush to form. It's dealing with wind shear from the west and from the east. We have wind shear coming from an upper low to the northwest of the Hispaniola area, and we have a little bit of upper level wind shear as well coming from the east from the system that's going to develop first, likely to become Humberto. And I don't know what's going on with the satellite here, and I apologize, but I will show you the visible and kind of tough to pick out. Let me tell you what, we're going to just stop this at this point because it's everybody and their mom's probably looking at tropical tidbits. And it's tough to pick out a center, but some trends that I have noticed that we may have a mid-level center all the way down here to the south of Puerto Rico, and we may have a low-level center forming somewhere near the north coast. It's really tough to figure out, but until these two get aligned, this system is not really going anywhere fast. The models don't really show that happening over the next 24 hours. And the other challenge is that we do have a lot of mountains over the middle portion of Hispaniola. So if this center goes here and this goes here, there will be some disruption. There will be some cacophony in what's going on here. And we will see some slow development in the fact that we're going to see more moisture and that the wind shear drops off, but we will see a very disorganized looking system. So that is some good news. The bad news is that this is a serious rainmaker for those of us with a big batch of rain that is just finally leaving St. Croix, but about to hammer the eastern portion of Puerto Rico, hitting Vieques right now as we speak. And that heavy rain is going to continue to dump through the night tonight and spread westward. Again, we can't really see a center on this radar. It's difficult to pinpoint, but you can see there are sort of two separate areas of twisting, one about 150 miles south of the island and one maybe 50 to 100 miles to the north and west of San Juan. So until those come together, this is not going to form very quickly, and that's why the chance is still a little bit on the low side over the next 2 days. More than likely, it's going to have to happen when this moves to the northwest of Hispaniola and gets over warmer water. So you see that area in red here. Again, the X is here for low at this point, but once it gets away from Hispaniola and moves towards the Turks and Caicos and the southeastern Bahamas, that chance does climb. And I think we're going to be looking at that probably Friday and early on Saturday, a better chance. You see water temperatures are super warm at this point, 88, 89 degrees Fahrenheit. And the system could strengthen pretty substantially once it gets its act together. And I think that's still a couple days off. But the problem here in the Bahamas, as we know, is storms can very quickly strengthen this time of the year due to the fact that the waters are extremely warm. It is possible this system takes longer to form. You see, that's why the red area stretches all the way up to just offshore of South Carolina, just to the east of Palm Beach, Florida, Jupiter, Florida. And so this entire area is fair game for seeing potential development. But if this system will be a hurricane, it's going to have to do it in the warmer waters, I believe, closer to Abaco and the central Bahamas, places just to the east of Nassau, for example. So going back to this site, this is Tomer Berg's site. I do want to show you the ensembles. And this is going to be confusing. We're not going to lie about that. You can see the GFS has extreme amounts of spread. Pretty high confidence that the system goes over Hispaniola. After that, we have all sorts of scenarios where the system could go through the Bahamas. It could not develop. It could move northeast towards Bermuda. It could move northwest towards the Carolinas. It could go west towards Florida. It could even drift southwest if it never really forms and find its way into the Western Caribbean. All of these are equally possible. I think the likeliest scenario at this point is going to take it up through the Bahamas. After that, that's where the question marks begin. And we're going to talk about why that is after we talk about 93, because that's going to be the reason. It's that there's two systems out here. The European ensemble guidance does not show the out to sea approach. It has this system hugging the coastline and potentially a threat to Florida when we get here about 6 days from now. So that gets us to Monday night and Tuesday. A threat to the Bahamas before then, Sunday and early on Monday. and maybe down the road, maybe up for the Carolinas as well. But we do have some members that continue to pull this westward. So until the system forms, the level of certainty is going to remain extremely low, and we're going to see all kinds of spread here. Here's the Canadian. It is not too far off from what the European is showing. You can see more ensemble members taking this away from the southeast coast, getting close, but eventually moving away and not making a landfall, but impacting Bermuda potentially. But we do still have ensembles that pull this northwest into the Carolinas or even up into the mid-Atlantic area. And we do have one outlier that trends this westward across Cuba. It just misses the trough and continues west into the Gulf, which is an unlikely scenario at this point. And then we look at the AI models like the Google DeepMind, and I don't know what to make of this one because it's done a good job in picking out where storms are going to form this season. It has not done a great job in the pre-formation tracks of these storms. And you can see why. I mean, the spread is all over the place, anywhere from Cuba and Florida all the way up to Newfoundland to west of the Azores. But if this does get out to sea here, it does have hurricane potential. And I think that's one thing just to keep in mind. If you're in the Carolinas, especially, this could still be a hurricane and could impact you. So we're going to track this more and more in the coming days. Our hurricane models at this point generally agree that this is going to go over or just to the north of Hispaniola and emerge here in about 48 hours. That would be Friday afternoon near the Turks and Caicos, and then continuing near or just to the east of the Bahamas, and maybe getting close to Florida, or maybe continuing northward and then creating a lot more uncertainty beyond that. The intensity forecast is going to be even more uncertain. Yes, it shows hurricane potential, but we've got to get it to form first, and that may not happen until Friday night or Saturday at this rate. All right, now we're going to talk about the next one. I think this one is going to very soon be Tropical Storm Humberto. It looks a little bit better than Gabrielle did, believe it or not, because it has shower and thunderstorm activity with it. If you go back and look real quick under the hood, you can see a swirl right about here. Oh, my goodness. I thought I grabbed my pen and I fumbled the ball here. But you see all the thunderstorm activity over here. So if we're following the rules of Gabrielle from, say, a week ago, this would already be a tropical storm. But it's not quite there. I think we're close. So you can see if we move this along a little bit more, the storm is tracking west-northwest. It is beginning to grow. There is some wind shear affecting it. But overall, it should gradually become our next tropical storm and should steadily intensify over time. Now, we do have recon that are sampling the atmosphere. Right now, they're starting with the area that's near Puerto Rico, but eventually they're going to get over here. These are not going in necessarily to figure out if there's a low-level center or how strong the winds are. What they're doing is they're dropping dropsondes into the storm formation area to see what the winds and moisture level and temperature of the atmosphere is surrounding these storms, to try to figure out where the steering currents are going to be. So this data is not going to tell us a whole lot, but it is going to be able to be useful for those that are making forecasts and running forecast simulations. Here's a look at where 93L is expected to go, and the shift to the west continues on some of the models, but we do also have several models bending the system back out, coming close to Bermuda. Now, unlike storms like Fernand and Gabrielle, this system is probably going west of Bermuda. Could it adjust back to the right and go over Bermuda? That is something we need to be concerned with, I believe. Could it end up farther to the west and maybe create some swells and maybe worse for the outer banks and farther up? That is also a possibility due to the fact that there's a lot of uncertainty here. But this one, I think, is for certain going to be a tropical storm in the next 12 hours. It could be a hurricane by the time we get to Saturday, maybe even a little bit quicker than that. It does have the possibility of being a major hurricane at some point this weekend. And if it keeps a safe enough distance from the other players on the field, I don't see why it can't strengthen faster. We saw that with Aaron and Gabrielle in this same part of the world. It's going to be in a spot where wind shear should be low, moisture should be sufficient. I don't see why this couldn't get to category 4 and rapidly intensify at some point. But our models are only so good, and they're not going to figure that out before the system is even named. Here's a look at the probability of where it's going to develop, and you can see it should be a tropical storm before it gets close enough to Bermuda. It's going over warmer water and in a spot that has been very favorable at this time. And so we are going to track 93L, which I think, again, should be Humberto. Looking at the models, taking a look here at the ensembles, you can see this one's a little bit more cut and dry for now. If you look at the GFS ensemble, I thought I had that. I guess it's not going to load today. All right, but you can see for the most part, the system is going to recurve. There are some interesting scenarios just to keep an eye on close to the coast of the Mid-Atlantic, but these are outliers at this point. I don't have the European yet. I guess the website is broken, but I was looking at it earlier and I did have something. And, well, I guess that's all right here. I've got something else to show you all. Here's Google DeepMind. And we're going to take a look here at our storm, which is likely forming, and then where the next system is going to be located. And this map is going to get very messy, but you see these systems are only about 500, 600 miles apart from each other, and both are moving in a similar direction through the weekend. After that, that's where things get messy because the two systems will get closer to each other, and we may see what's called a Fujiwhara effect. How that plays out is yet to be determined, but that could occur here early next week, Monday or Tuesday. And there are many possibilities with the Fujiwhara, but you can see at this point, if you're in South Florida, don't let your guard down. Just because the majority of the guidance pulls us northeast, it doesn't mean you may not have impacts in South Florida. I think in the Bahamas, we definitely need to be preparing at this point for a system that could strengthen quickly. Bermuda definitely needs to be preparing. Bermuda, you're going to have some rough weather. The good news is that after these two go out, we probably are not going to see a whole lot more going on at this point. Eventually, we're going to probably be watching the Western Caribbean and the Gulf area, but that's probably still a couple weeks away. Keeps getting pushed back, by the way. And then the GenCast, again from Google. And you see Humberto and then likely Imelda. This is Saturday evening. This is Sunday. And this is Monday. And the difference between the GenCast and the Google DeepMind is that the GenCast has almost a third of its ensembles affecting Florida directly. So that is still a possibility at this point. It does have ensembles going up into the Carolinas. It's got a few beginning to recurve away from land. It also has the next system coming much farther to the west and southwest of Bermuda, which is concerning because that is something in the Bahamas and then the southeast coast we need to be keeping an eye on. Eventually pulling back out, but making a very severe turn out. Because Florida's in play, the Gulf could also be in play, but this would not be until the second half of next week. So all of these are possibilities right now. This was the last time we had Humberto, 2019. And if you're in Bermuda, this should be familiar. You had this hurricane come very close to you. It was a Category 3. It didn't get retired. I guess it just didn't destroy the entire island. I know it caused some damage, but a very similar track here coming up through the Bahamas and then making a sharp right and then going out to sea and not really making landfall. Just causing some impact here on the island. We're going to take a look at the setup here. Here's the European. You see there's going to be a trough that's moving east, and it's positively tilted, meaning southwest to northeast. There's a ridge of high pressure near Bermuda here tomorrow, and that ridge remains in place. It's not in a hurry to leave. In fact, it flexes its muscles. This trough is going to then have to cut off. It's not going to be able to plow through the ridge. That's not possible. What it's going to do is draw these two systems more towards it. It's going to attract them. And then after that, things get more interesting because we've got to see, okay, does our ridge hold on tight? Does it shift east and let this trough move away? Is there a stronger trough up through Atlantic Canada that lifts this up? We don't really know at this point, but until we know where this upper level low is going to go, we're not going to know where these two systems end up. This is the European from earlier, which shows one system flirting with the coast, the other one offshore. But not exactly leaving the picture very quickly. It takes its sweet time. So a lot of uncertainty still to come and a lot of players on the map. Here's the HWRF model. I want to get you the 12Z if it's possible. Here's Gabby, not an issue. Here's Humberto, and then our next system a little bit slower to get going, but it looks like it does get going on Saturday near the central Bahamas, just east. And unless this system takes off, this one will be the dominant one, and it's going to be the one that takes over and probably eventually hurts this system's chances of developing. By the way, there could be a third system behind it, but we're not going to worry about that one at this point. Now, the HMON model, and let me give you the latest run here. HMON model does develop both of these systems, and that's a real possibility. In fact, Saturday, if this system here takes off, it's far enough away to have some space to be able to do that. What happens after that gets extremely interesting because we have two systems basically breathing on each other's neck. And this one's going to try to pull this one off the ledge and keep it from going inland. It may flirt with the coast, but we just don't know at this point how that's going to play out. Here's one of the HAFS models to show you. It is not super excited with the I storm. It may form, it may not. It certainly, though, has Humberto being a strong hurricane. And then here's the other HAFS. And this one, again, is not super excited about the possibility of a hurricane. So about half of our hurricane models show Imelda becoming a hurricane. The other half show it being on the struggle bus the entire time. But all the models show Humberto likely becoming a stronger hurricane, a Cat 2 or a Cat 3, maybe even more than that, and something to watch in Bermuda for Monday and Tuesday of next week. GFS model, this one is on board with both systems forming, but the major storm picking this one up and dragging it around here and just basically killing it by the time we get to Wednesday. That would be the best case scenario for the southeastern United States, because then we wouldn't have to worry about a direct threat. It could be a bad situation for Bermuda, though, as you can see here. The Canadian does not agree with the GFS. It has two separate storms. In fact, it takes this one right over Abaco Island Sunday night, Monday morning. It takes Humberto far enough west where eventually it picks up Imelda here and grabs it and pulls it out, sort of a Fujiwhara effect. And we don't actually have a direct landfall, but it actually takes Imelda over Bermuda here in about a week from today. That would be pretty bad. The Icon model is not the most reliable tropical model, but it is showing a similar approach to what we just saw. It's got the Fujiwhara where these two are kind of rotating, but eventually the bigger storm pulls this one away. But it's still in the neighborhood here by the middle of next week. And until it actually can leave, you can see it's already trying to have a breakout session here on Wednesday night. That could be bad. So we're going to watch that one for you. And then the AI forecast, the AIFS, actually pulls this system again over Abaco and then very close to the east coast of Florida before pulling it back out. So there's a possibility the storm doesn't make landfall, but we're going to have to watch anyway. Here's the European operational. This one I had to zoom in a little more because of Weather Bell's site, but you can see a little farther east than the AI and the Icon, but showing two separate storms and two likely hurricanes. And then again, pulling this one back out. But it finds a way to break out and comes right back towards the Outer Banks the following weekend. Boy, would that sting, by the way. So we're going to have to watch it pretty closely here, but a lot can still change. I was going to talk about the Fujiwhara effect. I'm just pulling up Google Gemini just to show you all how it works. It's named after a Japanese meteorologist who discovered this back, I think, in the 60s and 70s when two storms of roughly similar size are within about 600 to 800 miles of each other. They interact with each other. Sometimes they will dance, kind of swing each other around counterclockwise in the northern hemisphere. Sometimes they will rotate around each other around a central point, not necessarily in the middle of the two. Sometimes one of them will take over and weaken the other one and suck it up. That's what some of the models are showing here. Sometimes there'll be a merging of the two systems, which would be quite unlikely in this scenario, I believe, or a deflection where they bounce off each other. And then we see one getting pushed back towards the southeast coast and the other going back out to sea. So the challenge here is that this interaction is going to add to a huge complexity in weather forecasting from what we're looking at today. But if this storm gets killed by a Hispaniola or continues west, that will not be a problem we have to worry about. It'll still be something in Florida and Cuba that we have to worry about, but at least we won't have to worry about the Fujiwhara effect. So we're going to stop there, but we will have more coming up here tomorrow. I appreciate everybody's time today. I do want to leave you with some Christian inspiration. This is the word of God for the people of God. 2 Corinthians 4:16. Therefore, we do not lose heart, even though our outward man is perishing, yet the inward man is being renewed day by day. God is the one who gives us all strength. He renews us. We are not getting strength from each other. We're not getting any younger. Your life is like a tomato. It's either ripening or it's dying. But here's the good news. If you choose to follow Jesus Christ and follow him as your savior, we've already been given that renewal. It is coming in the form of eternal life through the salvation of Jesus Christ. And that is the good news I came here to share with you today. I've talked a lot about it in my videos. I'm not a preacher. I am a Christian who is excited about having some hope, because for a long time in my life, I did not. But the good news is that you can make that choice. You have that opportunity to believe that God created you for a purpose. And it's not to sit and rot away, but it's to have eternal life. And, oh, by the way, to have a meaningful impact on others while you are here on earth. So I appreciate everybody's time today. I hope you all have a wonderful evening, and I look forward to connecting with you again. And I wish I had more certainty for you today, but at this point, it's just impossible to get too specific. So we'll just keep watching it for you. And look for updates here on my channel. And if you haven't subscribed yet, I encourage that you do that. Costs you nothing. It'll help you see what's going on as I continue to update you and provide you with information as necessary. Thanks, everyone.